Okay, so there's this chemical, vinyl sulfone. You probably never heard the name, right?
Most people haven't. Yeah.
But it turns out it's kind of a big deal in global trade. It's a key ingredient for reactive dyes.
Exactly. The stuff that makes your t-shirt color actually stay put after you wash it, it forms a real chemical bond with the fabric.
Right, not just sitting on top.
Yeah.
And it's used in making other chemicals too. But get this number, the market for it is projected at USD 220 million for 2025.
It's substantial. It's one of those, hidden building blocks in a lot of things we use every day. Textiles are the main one for sure.
So that's what we're diving into today. We've got a market report here from March 2025 focused entirely on vinyl sulfone.
Mm.
Our mission is to unpack the key insights, figure out why this seemingly obscure chemical matters more than you might think. We'll look at growth, regional differences, maybe even trade war impacts.
Yeah, it touches on a lot of broader economic themes.
Ready to dig in.
Let's do it. So the headline figure looking forward is pretty striking. The report forecasts the global market reaching almost USD 3 billion by 2033.
Wow, okay, so 2.1 billion in 2025, jumping to nearly 3 billion, what, 8 years later?
That's right. USD 2,969 million to be precise.
What's driving that kind of growth?
It works out to a compound annual growth rate, a CGR, of about 4.3% between 2025 and 2033.
4.3%, okay.
And a huge part of that, really the main engine, is that increasing demand for reactive dyes we mentioned. Basically, as the world wants more clothes and fabrics.
It needs more vinyl sulfone to color them.
Yeah,
Makes sense. Fashion changes, but
yeah,
we always need textiles.
exactly.
So where is all this action happening, geographically speaking?
Well, it's interesting. Right now, in 2025, North America actually holds the largest share.
Really? Okay. How much?
Over 40% of global revenue. The market size there was pegged at USD 784.40 million for 2025.
40% is dominant. What's the story behind that?
It seems to be strong demand for organic chemicals, especially for clothing, and the U.S. particularly has a pretty sophisticated, established textile sector.
Gotcha. And within North America?
The U.S. is the giant, USD 618.89 million in 2025, growing at maybe 2.6% annually. Canada smaller, around 94 million, but growing a bit faster, 3.6%. And Mexico, about 71 million, growing at 3.3%.
Okay, so the U.S. leads, but decent growth across the board there. What about Europe?
Europe's also a major player, held over 30% of the market in 2025.
30%.
That's a market size of USD 614.80 million. And their projected growth is solid too, CAGR of 3.4% through 2033.
What defines the European market?
Well, you've got a very strong chemical industry base in several countries. Germany, for instance, is significant.
Okay.
Around 121 million market size in 2025, growing at 3.6%. And the UK, also strong, emphasizing high-quality dyes, about 103 million, growing even faster at 4.2%.
Interesting that the UK's growth is a bit higher there.
Yeah, and the report breaks down figures for France, Italy, Russia, Spain, others too, each contributing.
Okay, so North America and Europe are the current big players. But where's the fastest growth expected? I'm guessing Asia Pacific.
You guessed right. APAC is definitely the one to watch for speed. In 2025, it held around 23% share,
Okay, smaller share now.
about USD 508.8 million market size. But the projected CAGR from 2025 to 2033 is 7.0%.
7%. That's significantly higher than the others.
It really is. And the engines there are pretty clear. The huge, booming textile industries, especially in China, India.
It makes sense. What are their numbers?
China's market was around USD 213.7 million in 2025, with a projected CAGR of 6.5%. India, though smaller at about 51 million,
Yeah.
has an incredible projected CAGR of 8.9%.
Wow, nearly 9% growth for India. That's huge.
Right.
Reflects those larger manufacturing shifts we see.
Absolutely. And Japan, South Korea, Southeast Asia, they all add to that dynamic picture in APAC. Lower manufacturing costs, big export focus, it all plays in.
Okay, what about the other regions? South America?
South America represented just over 5% share globally in 2025. That's about USD 80.56 million. Projected growth is 5.0% CAGR.
Still solid growth. Any standout country?
Brazil is key, with its own significant textile sector. It was about 34.5 million in 2025, growing at 5.6%.
Got it. Yeah, in the Middle East.
Smaller still, around 2% global share in 2025, roughly USD 84.8 million, but the growth rate is projected at 5.6%.
Also growing quite well then. Driven by.
Again, an expanding textile sector seems to be a factor. Saudi Arabia and the UAE are mentioned specifically, with CAGRs around 5.9% and 6.1%, respectively.
Okay, and last one, Africa.
Africa is the smallest regional market currently, about 1% share in 2025. That's USD 46.64 million. Projected CAGR is 4.6%.
Slower growth than some others, but still positive.
Yeah, and interestingly, the report notes growing demand for high-performance adhesives in Nigeria as a factor there.
Yeah.
South Africa is the larger market within the continent, about 16.4 million, growing at 5.5%.
Okay, quite a detailed regional picture. North America leads now, but APAC is where the real acceleration is happening.
That's the takeaway, yeah.
Now, beyond textiles, which is clearly huge, what other things are driving demand for vinyl sulfone?
Well, the general expansion of the chemical industry is a big one. Vinyl sulfone isn't just an end product ingredient, it's an intermediate.
A building block for other stuff.
Exactly. So as chemical production grows overall, demand for these intermediates rises. Then there's increasing use in high-performance adhesives, like we saw mentioned for Nigeria, also in ion exchange resins,
Which are used for?
water purification, other separation processes, and here's a slightly unexpected one: printed circuit boards, PCBs.
In electronics, how does it fit in there?
It plays a role in manufacturing certain components for PCBs, so it's not just fabrics, it's creeping into electronics manufacturing too.
Huh. That's fascinating. Really shows the breadth. Okay, so plenty of drivers. What about things holding it back? Any potential headwinds?
Definitely. The report flags a couple of key restraints. One is, perhaps unsurprisingly, stricter government regulations.
Around environmental impact?
Exactly. Dye manufacturing can be resource-intensive and generate problematic waste. So there's increasing scrutiny and regulations, especially in developed countries, aimed at controlling pollution and phasing out certain chemicals. Vinyl sulfone production and use can fall under that umbrella.
That makes total sense. Sustainability is pushing change everywhere. What else?
The other major factor is the price and availability of raw materials. Things like sulfuric acid and olefins are needed to make vinyl sulfone.
And their prices can swing.
They can be quite volatile, yeah. They're often linked to oil prices and subject to all the supply chain disruptions we've become familiar with lately. If raw materials get expensive or hard to source, that directly impacts vinyl sulfone production costs and availability.
Right, those supply chain ripples affect everything. Okay, so regulations and raw material costs are the main challenges. Looking forward then, what trends are shaping the market?
Innovation is a big one, especially in the reactive dyes themselves. Companies are working on more sustainable and efficient products.
Right, greener dyes.
Pretty much. The report mentions Huntsman's Avitera S dye, launched back in March 2022. It's designed to use significantly less water and electricity, up to 50% less, they claim.
Wow, 50% savings is huge, both for cost and environment.
Exactly. And it apparently delivers better performance, too. So that's the direction things are heading. Sustainability plus efficiency.
Makes sense.
Any other key trends?
We're also seeing strategic investments by the major chemical companies. They see the growth forecasts and are expanding capacity to meet that expected demand.
Positioning themselves for the future.
Right. MilliporeSigma's big expansion in France announced September 2022. Okay, that was focused on life sciences, but it shows the scale of investment happening in related chemical sectors. Companies are betting on growth.
So innovation towards sustainability and companies scaling up. Got it. The report also breaks the market down by different segments, right? What did that show?
Yeah, two interesting ones were study design outlook and indication outlook. Under study design, the interventional category is largest.
Meaning the direct use of vinyl sulfone as a reagent, an active ingredient in chemical processes. That's its main function.
Okay.
But the fastest growing segment under that outlook was observational.
Observational, like
Yeah.
watching the market.
Kind of. It suggests a growing need for market research analysis, just understanding the trends and dynamics of the vinyl sulfone market itself. The market for studying the market is growing fast.
Wow, that's a bit meta, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, what about the indication outlook? What applications are driving things there?
So indication refers more to the end-use area, particularly in sort of specialized applications. Oncology holds the biggest share currently.
Cancer research.
Yeah, vinyl sulfone derivatives are used in developing certain cancer therapies, like HDAC inhibitors.
Interesting. Any other medical links?
Well, the cardiovascular segment is flagged as expanding rapidly. Apparently, some vinyl sulfone derivatives show anti-inflammatory properties, so potential there for future cardiovascular treatments, perhaps.
So it's not just dyes and industrial chemicals. It's finding roles in advanced R&D, too. That's pretty versatile. Who are the big companies making all this stuff?
The report suggests it's a relatively consolidated market, meaning a few major manufacturers have a large slice of the pie.
Okay. Any names mentioned?
Yeah, companies like Bodil Chemicals, Curie Industries, often stylized as Kilshri Pushkar Chemicals and Fertilizers. There's a list of key players.
And what they focused on?
The big themes seem to be R&D, especially for those more environmentally friendly products we talked about. Also, mergers and acquisitions to strengthen their position and just generally expanding their product portfolios.
Makes sense in a growing market. Any recent examples of that activity?
The report points to HIG Capital acquiring Avient Corporation back in August 2022 and that Millicor Sigma investment again in September 2022 as examples of the kind of strategic moves happening.
Okay, so established players are active, investing, acquiring. It paints a picture of a dynamic space. So just to bring it full circle, who's leading now and who's set to grow fastest?
Right. So, as we said, North America had the biggest market share in 2025. That's down to having major players there, strong domestic demand for chemicals, and even things like the growth of online clothes shopping boosting textile needs. The U.S. is the powerhouse.
But the future growth story is elsewhere.
Yeah, looking ahead, all signs point to Asia Pacific having that fastest CAGR, driven by those big textile hubs, China, India, Bangladesh too, benefiting from investment and strong manufacturing capabilities.
Got it. So let's try and sum this up. Vinyl sulfone sounds niche, but it's actually a multi-billion-dollar global market.
Absolutely. USD 2.1 billion in 2025, heading towards 3 billion by 2033.
Steady overall growth, but really accelerating in Asia Pacific. The textile industry is clearly the main customer.
By far.
And we're also seeing innovation push towards greener products, and companies are investing strategically. Plus, it pops up in adhesives, electronics, even medical research.
It really touches more areas than you'd initially think, and it's directly tied to things we use constantly, like our clothes.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? Here's a final thought for you, the listener. Consider those incredibly complex global supply chains we rely on. How many other chemicals like vinyl sulfone, seemingly small cogs, are actually underpinning huge industries and reflecting these massive global economic shifts?
Yeah, what other hidden ingredients are shaping our world in ways we don't even realize? It's a fascinating rabbit hole to go down if you start looking into market reports in the chemical sector. Shows how interconnected everything really is.